So there it is, the no tools Siewicki Shelter. And now I'm going to show you how it works. All right, bud, let's see.
Siewicki Shelter.
All right, just want to give you a quick overview of all the materials and parts you need for your Siewicki Shelter. I'll go over this in detail and explain to you every part you need. It'll also be listed in the description. There'll be a parts list as well as links to where you can buy a lot of those parts easily. So let's go through it and show you exactly what parts you need. Okay, now I'm going to show you all the parts and materials you need for this build for the Siewicki Shelter. It's going to be 10 by 20 feet and it works great. First, you're going to need 10-foot long sections of PVC. This is 2-inch PVC. You can use 3-inch PVC, which works great. The only difference is it's going to cost a little bit more. It's going to add a little bit more weight. But the 3-inch PVC will last longer. You know, this 2-inch PVC will last, you know, we probably get 3 or 4 years of it before it bows or cracks in the sun. Whereas a 3-inch PVC, you might get, you know, 8 years out of. This stuff, you know, you'll get good 3 or 4 years out of it, the 2-inch, which is, you know, that's what you're going to get if you're building a wood framed hoop house or structure shelter for your birds. So the 2-inch works fine. So you're going to need 15 of these 2-inch PVC, 15 pieces of 10 foot. We'll make a few cuts. You're going to need 8 of these elbows, these 90-degree elbows for 2-inch. Make sure they are deep seated so they sit in there nicely. You're going to need tees, and you're going to need 10 of these 2-inch tees. And lastly, you're going to need one of these 4-way connectors. You're going to need 2 of these, 2-inch as well, where you got 3 openings, and then it's like a T with an extra opening, a 4th opening. And I'll post links to all these materials in the description of the list of what you need, all the materials list, as well as links to where you can find them easily. You're also going to need 12-inch zip ties. So these 12-inch fit around this PVC nicely. 200 of those. We're going to need some poultry netting. You can use, this is 4-foot poultry netting, so I'm going to have some overhang, which is fine. You can also use hardware cloth. The only downside of using hardware cloth is it's a bit more heavy. So I like using the poultry netting. It's less weight. But you're going to need about 75 feet of the poultry netting or hardware cloth. And this is 4-foot length. So I'm going to have a little extra overhang, which is what I want. So it'll fit with my tarp nicely. You're going to need PVC cement and PVC primer. We're going to need a tarp. So this is a 10-foot by 20-foot tarp. It's canvas that I'm repurposing. Make sure you get canvas if you want your tarp to last. Do not get these poly tarps if you want them to last more than 6 months. Those things are garbage. They fall apart. They disintegrate in the sun. Use canvas. It'll last forever. And that's it for parts and materials. It's real simple. Those are all the parts you need. You don't need to use any screws, any wood that'll split or crack or rot on you. This thing is real easy to make. Goes real fast. You can make it within just, you know, about 2 hours. Make a shelter. And it's real easy to do. You don't need any special tools. All you need is a saw. You can use a hand saw or a chop saw to cut the PVC into lengths. And it's real simple. I love it. It's lightweight. It's effective. You can move it with your hands. And because it's 10 foot by 20 foot, 200 square feet, you can easily put 125 to 150 birds in there and have them be comfortable. So I like doing this model. You can put a lot of birds in there and you can move it by hand, which is key. And you don't have to put the poultry netting around the outsides. You can also just have it open air. If you want to just give them a shade shelter, you can use this. You can make it a little taller. You can use it for sheep or goats or pigs as well if you wanted to. It's very versatile. Yeah, that's all the parts you need. And I'll go into the build and show you how to do it. The first thing we want to do is mark our PVC. We're going to cut 6 pieces that are 2.5 feet long. This is 10-foot long section of PVC, so we'll get 4 out of this, and then we'll make 2 more out of a second piece. So 6 pieces of PVC that are 30 inches long. So that's the first step, is to cut that, measure and cut it. Okay, so we cut our 6 30-inch long pieces. We're left with this piece that's 5 foot long from that piece that we cut. So we've got a 5 foot piece of scrap 2-inch PVC here. And next I'm going to make my final cuts, which is going to be 8 pieces of 6-inch 2-inch PVC. So I'm just going to measure 6 inches and I want to cut 8 pieces. Now I'm using this chop saw to cut this PVC, but you can use a lot of different things to cut it. You can use a sawzall, you can even use a grinder, you could use a handsaw. There's a lot of different ways you can cut this. This thing makes it easy, but this is the only tool that you need for this entire build. It's just a saw or way of cutting this PVC. And these don't have to be exact, just as close as you can to 6 inches. Doesn't need to be exact. There's my 8 6-inch pieces. And that's all the cuts. Okay, so here's the layout of the bottom section. We'll go in a little closer. I'll show you how it looks. So you need to lay it out in this order. So each corner is going to have an elbow, followed by a 6-inch piece, followed by a T, which goes to your 10-inch long piece. This goes to another T in the middle, another 10-inch long PVC, elbow, 6-inch, or T, 6-inch piece, elbow. And so you want these elbows on the short side on both ends, and you want the T's on these long runs. And that's key for making everything fit together properly. You can do it, piece it together differently, but you're gonna have to make a few modifications, add a few extra pieces and a joint in here or there. So build it this way. It's gonna save yourself some time, some expense, some material, with your T's all on the long end. And this is gonna be the bottom piece. The top piece is gonna be very similar, with one little twist. So I'll show you how we make that. But this is gonna be the bottom box, and then we'll build a top box. Okay, let's go ahead and glue up our bottom section. First, we wanna use our primer. You wanna put this on the female piece as well as the male piece, both sides, on all the fittings. Basically all the primer does is just kind of cleans it, gets the dirt off it, ensures a good smooth seal and a good smooth fit. So I prime all the pieces that I'm going to glue. Then we'll add our glue to both sides. So glue here, all the way around. Glue on the inside, so you're getting a nice, good fit. Hold it there for a couple seconds until it stays. Then do the next one. Okay, got a nice corner there. Now we're going to do our T. I like to just kind of prop this up on my foot to keep it out of the dirt, keep it clean. Put our T in. Now, the only thing with the T is you want to make sure all these openings are facing the same direction. So I'm facing them all up. So on every corner when I glue these up, the opening on the T is going to be facing up, so they all fit together. Switch feet here. Prime this one. Add our glue. Make sure that goes together nicely, and that's it. That's one corner done. We'll repeat the same thing for all 3 corners. Here's the middle section for the bottom frame. The middle section is going to be the only part that differs when we repeat this process for the top frame. This will be the bottom frame. Glue both sides. Put that on there. Make sure, gonna eyeball it, make sure that's facing straight up. Do the other side. So I give it a little bit of a twist when I put it in, hold it in there, make sure it's secure, and we should be good to go. The only difference when we do the top section, instead of having a T here, we'll have that four-way connection. And I'll show you how we do that. Okay, here's the bottom section, all complete and laid out. You can see the corners, how I did them with the T there on the long side, followed by the elbow. In the center is a T. And on the end, same thing, T followed by an elbow. And those little 6-inch pieces that we cut in between the T and the elbow. Now we're gonna do the top section. The top section is gonna be identical to this bottom square that we just made, or rectangle, I should say. The only difference between the bottom section and the top section is the center pieces. Instead of using a T, we're going to use this piece, which is this four-way piece. So instead of using a T here, we use a four-way piece. So that's the only difference between the top and the bottom, is the top piece is going to have that four-way connector in the center with a center bar going across. So now we'll make the top section. Okay, here's the layout of our top section. Same as before with the bottom section, but the only difference being the center. We have the four-way connector with the center beam, but everything else is the same. So we'll go ahead and get this glued up. And to position this one, we want the open face facing up, and this opening facing the interior of our pin. I'll make sure those are in there snug and secure. As you kind of twist it a little bit and then hold it till it stays. That's our middle joint. Next step, we're gonna go ahead and glue on these 30-inch pieces to each T on the top section. Okay, now it's time to glue our two sections together. So we're going to take the top, flip it up over, and glue it onto the bottom. Hopefully, if we've done this right, we don't snap these legs off. So just be real careful when you're tipping it up and over that you don't snap these legs off. All right, so the next part is putting your poultry netting on. So I just start at a corner, start at one leg, and start rolling this netting around. I'm gonna go ahead and attach this with my zip ties. And I'm doing it such that the wire hangs down over the frame here, but doesn't drag on the ground, because we don't want it to catch and hang up on stuff. So I just kind of make it flush with the ground. And then we're gonna have some excess up top, and that's okay, because we wanna make sure we're covering where our tarp is and there's no areas where a predator could get through or something like that. So just put some on the top, some on the bottom, and keep going all the way around. So I put them out every foot, every 12 inches. It's gonna be hard for a predator to get underneath that, either down here or up here. You can put them tighter if you want, but about every 10 to 12 inches works pretty well. So I'm using poultry netting to put around the frame of our shelter here. And the advantages of poultry netting is it is affordable, it's lightweight, it's flexible, it's easy to work with. You could also use hardware cloth instead of poultry netting. The advantages of hardware cloth is more rigid, so it's harder for predators to kind of bend it to get underneath. You can use quarter or half-inch hardware cloth, and then the other advantage is sometimes birds will pile up against the shelter, The PVC keeps them away a little bit so they can't get right on the edge, right on the fence. But sometimes they'll pile up in the corner and like a raccoon or something or a possum can stick their paw in. And sometimes they can kill them or severely injure them. Whereas if you had the hardware cloth, they wouldn't be able to do that. It's a little tighter holes. Also, snakes can't get through hardware cloth. So that's the advantages of the hardware cloth, but it costs a little more and it has a little more weight to it. And it's a little harder to work with. It's more rigid, but you can use, I've used both. You can use either one. Either one would be fine. Okay, now we're going to attach our tarp to our Siewicki shelter. To do this, I have two 10 by 12 foot tarps, and the actual dimensions of our shelter, even though we use 10-foot sections of PVC, the actual dimensions are about 10 foot 5 inches wide by about 22 feet long, because we put some extra connections in there. So it's actually a good bit longer than 20 feet. So two 10 foot by 12 foot tarps fit it nicely. I'll do the 10-foot section this way, and then the 12-foot section is going to stretch this length, since it's longer than it is wide. So I have 3-foot hardware cloth right here, and around the other side we did 4-foot poultry netting all the way across. I just had some 3-foot hardware cloth laying around that I used, but you wouldn't want to use 3-foot poultry netting or hardware cloth around the entire thing, because then your 10-foot tarp is not going to stretch that full length. So I've got I did 4 foot on that side, so I've got a foot of overlap, so my tarp will make it all the way across. So it's probably best to start with this middle section so you get it nice and taut. You want the middle to be tight and line up with this center bar, and then your other end can hang over the edge. I'm pulling it tight as I'm zipping it closed, so I don't want any gaps where like a hawk or an owl can slip in. The other thing I like to do is I'll keep one end either over there or over here. Instead of using a zip tie, I'll use like a wire tie or string or something. That way I can easily undo it, flip the flap up. I can go in if I need to feed them, water them, pick up dead birds, whatever, and then flip it back over and just wire it shut with a wire tie or some rope. Okay, so here's what one side looks like. We'll do the second side, but just wanted to show you. We got it all zipped down tight. Okay, all the way around. Got a little bit of overlap on this end, and that's what you want. You want a little bit of overlap. Now, the last thing you want to do, finishing touches, once you get your tarp zipped on, we got to put some holes in it. Doesn't need to be very big, but I just put a few slits in with a knife, because this canvas tarp will hold water. So when the rain comes, all the water will pool in the center. It'll drag this thing down. It'll weaken your shelter. You know, you could break zip ties or PVC. So we don't want all the water to pool in here after a heavy rainstorm. So I'm going to put several holes in the center. So when it does rain, all that water will go to the center and it'll drain through. All right, last thing we need to do is put a pull strap on it. I like to use this old webbing, this from a come along. And you want to attach it to both sides, and I like to attach it around this T, around this joint, so it doesn't put too much stress. You don't want to attach it to the center, because then you could break it, put too much stress on that center piece. So there it is, the Siewicki shelter with no tools, and I'm going to show you how it moves. It's real simple. It doesn't take a lot of strength. This is 10 by 20. You can put 125 to 150 birds in here, and yeah, it works great. Keeps them safe, and it's lightweight, so you can put a lot of birds in here. It doesn't require any tools to build, and it'll last forever with this PVC. Well, not forever, but it'll last quite a while. All right, so let's move it. Ready? Pull.
So our Siewicki shelter.
So our Siewicki shelter is finished, and just to show you how lightweight and easy to move it is, I can pick it up even without a strap, weigh very much, and drag it. Doesn't take much, and that's it.
The Siewicki shelter.
For the last part of the Siewicki shelter, I'm going to show you how we attach our feeders and waters and what I use. This is 8-inch double-walled corrugated pipe. It's double-walled, so it has a smooth interior, and I just cut it in half. This across a 10-foot section, cut the ends off, cut it in half horizontally, and then just put blocks on either end so the feed doesn't spill out. And we'll just tie a rope around this, tie it to the shelter so it goes with us as we drag it. This is our 4-inch water, field water. Basically, we just take a 4-inch diameter PVC, cut the top section off of it, put a cap on either end, and then we add this little float valve here, which I'll include a link for. And what this does is we can plug in a hose, got a quick connect, so we can plug our hose in there. Water will fill up, this thing will shut off when it gets full, and birds can dunk their heads in here, they can drink. It'll keep full at all times, but the birds can't get in here and poop in it, which is critical. And then we'll tie this, strap this to the inside of the shelter as well. So we're just going to tie this in 2 places to hold it firmly. But I don't want it too firm. I want to be able to reach in and dump it like so. There, so now it's secure. It'll travel with us when we move, and we can easily pick it up. Kind of dump the water out. Just like that, dump. Now you can watch the feeder and water travel with the shelter. They're both tied on. Both move nicely. And go with the shelter as it moves.